architect to be a part of such an event, it's always enlightening, but then we have our own worries, grievances also in terms of what we dream of. And luckily for us, there have been a lot of fantastic experienced specialists in steel as well as suppliers who have really supported us since last almost 6-7 years, where steel emerged very strongly in India. We as architects, we've been very lucky to get a few potential iconic buildings in the country. And before being in Mumbai, I was founding partner at Human Architects. Before that, I was in Singapore, where we did a couple of theaters, which were the state-of-art theaters for lyric centers and concert halls. And these were some of the most iconic projects in Singapore. People move there, visit there. That is a must-see, must-do kind of an event there. Coming to India, coming to this summit, faster execution with steel was a theme which we all started off with, and it's a very, very, very important point on the need of the hour today. We have a lot to talk on this, a lot to mention about it, but I would first like to put a point to all the respected members here. Today, indulging in making a steel building, there is a lot of discussions which go in, a lot of hard selling which goes in to promote or to convince a client to build in steel. Be it Tatas, be it Jindals, be it Everest, everybody has their own piece of meals, but then everybody knows how difficult steel buildings are to evolve and to kind of develop in the country. What we saw then is a lot of clients which came in with fast-track buildings. What is a fast-track building? What is a faster construction? We said that let's understand, let's analyze. So looking at steel, we thought that a steel structure needs a great foundation. With experts like Nikhil Bhai, Jiten Bhai, we would like to first understand and first tell ourselves, is the foundation or can the foundation also be in steel? The answer is no. So conventionally, you have to go RCC. So the time lost there in a conventional RCC foundation is as same as a conventional RCC building. Let's come up. And I have a few slides which I'm going to show you, where we felt that that's where we can save. And yes, we can save time. We can save time with steel, but just to reach the shell and core, what happens next? If we are engaged by a client and he says, here's Mr. Architect, here's a 5 lakh square feet single tower, build it for me in 12 months. Every steel company can come and say, okay, we'll do it in 7 months, 8 months. What about finishing? What about the permissions? What about the handovers? What about the successful occupancy of the end user? So that's where the immediate challenge comes into place, where planning is critical. We've learned the hard way out. We've seen steel buildings being built in 6 months, and it takes 6 years to kind of finish a building. To finish a building from various parameters, not only construction of the shell and core, but the fireproofing and the works ahead, which I'm quickly going to show you in the next few slides. So this is typically one of the headquarters. I don't know, most of you would have seen it. This is the headquarters for MMRDA, which came in band next to Mithi River. I'm standing on the Mithi River taking this picture, and this is how it was built. The basic core was built in RCC, and the structure above went totally in structural steel. This was one of the major projects which the government of Maharashtra took up. It's a government building taken up by a system which says work with as per a DSR. And if you want to build a steel building, please show how can justify the cost and things. We all need to come together and say, how do we justify this cost? Of course, there was a gentleman who proved the ROIs and the faster track, the return of investment, etc. But can we do this at a start point, as steel is the need of hour, because of the structural elements? Vivek, I would ask you, there are so many iconic buildings we've all done. The kind of spans which we are getting, the kind of open void spaces we are getting, the shapes we are getting, steel is a fantastic solution. But what happens to the afterthoughts of how to finish with steel? This is where I would say this is a successfully handed over building, where my common public areas are finished, the wet areas are finished, the elevators, the staircase core areas are all finished. Why should it be finished? Because I will not get to use this building till I get the occupancy certificate to this. To get an occupancy certificate to this, all this finishing works has to happen only after the steel structure is fully finished in terms of making a watertight building. Now, what's a watertight building? I cannot get this done in a shell and core kind of a structure. This finishing, none of the finishing contractors would come and start indulging themselves in such kind of a finishing works, which is very important, which is where the building needs to be 100% watertight before the finishing work starts to get into play. This finishing work is also important. It's also important from getting the occupancy certificate perspective, where after which a potential tenant, potential user, potential build-to-suit client will come and occupy this building. That's where the rent starts, or that's where then the money starts flowing in. Every client today, any end user, he says that I will pay after I occupy. To reach to this level, there are so many roadblocks which probably we are not prepared. Why I say that is because we are fantastically prepared, or on the annual to be prepared to make the shell course, but to get the finishing done, to reach to these levels, we have a lot of learning still yet to come. This is a typical sequence of activities which we thought would happen for a 5 lakh square feet. It's approximately 3 levels of parking, about 750 car parks, and about 13-14 stories on top. So, from the point of view of faster handover, right from the foundation to the shell and core, to the firefighting systems, to the cladding works, to the services, to the above the overhead services, to the on-the-floor services, the elevators, we're almost 10 months down. This is something which we have tried to do lately, and the client himself was not convinced. The client says, are you treating me as a guinea pig? Are you going to do this as a first time project? A lot of projects here, a lot of clients have said this, where we have tried to convince them, we've tried to win over them, we got successful places, and there are places where steel companies, please come forward and help us to say that we can build a 5 lakh square feet building in 6 months. Rest, please give it back to us for finishing works. Finishing works is, the main thing is the firefighting works, the fire treatment, the cladding works, which is the external skin to the building, and then the elevators and etc. I am not talking of fit outs. The fit outs come and we take almost 4 months for a final fit out, but that is not a showstopper. Once the client takes over the property in the 10th or 12th month, he takes 12 months if he wants to for a fit out, but then that's where we are worried and looking for. So that's where we thought that we should have pre-architectured buildings instead of pre-engineered buildings. Can we think of this aspect where we would like to come forward and say, let's plan to the last bit of firefighting and air conditioning system. Let's understand what happens when the first plan goes to a structural consultant. Is he getting the entire plan along with all the services, along with all the shafts, along with all the locations of AHU rooms, the places where there is a loading factor, or the places where there are server rooms, etc. to be kept? Probably no, because the architect himself doesn't know who's the end user. But at times there are places where this is just a test case which we try to do, and this has been a win-win plan in most of the experiences which we try to work on in terms of getting a long span. Now the spans here for the column-to-column grids, generally we've seen designers allowing us between 8.8 to 8.8 to 10.8 by 8.8 meters, but at the cost of cost. Now, we have done the learnings there, we got the learnings. Can we please safely ask all of us, can we go for a 10.8 meters by 8.8 meters, 0.600 beam depths? The question, if it's yes, it really helps us. It really helps us to kind of win over in terms of a typical corporate office bay, where not only from the parking perspective, because that is one of the most convenient or the most conducive parking, efficient parking, which helps us to park 4 cars in a grid instead of 3 cars conventionally in an 8.8 meters by 8.8 meters grid. So this is where we would like to kind of put up a case. Please guide us on the structural elements, that is one. Let us as architects and structural consultants be very curved and specific about asking to all the end users, clients, please give us your heat load requirements in terms of the densities, what we are supposed to be occupied. If no, then there are green buildings in BKC, in Mumbai, who have said, Mr. Client, please do not load more than 1 person per 100 square feet. Now that is, in Mumbai, it's a big challenge, but people have demanded, people have successfully played in the BKC domain. People have done that successfully in the Powai domains. I'm not taking names of developers, but if people can do it at 1 or 2 cases, I think all of us should have some kind of benchmarks to say, okay, this is how we play in the entire gamut of things in terms of the floor plates. It's very important here that all the architectural features and the MEP planning should be done at a very conceptual stage, which helps us to kind of help us as well as the structural consultants to ensure they take care of all the shafts, etc. in terms of their lateral bracings, like the lift shafts and the core areas for the server rooms. Mind you, each office today, each corporate office needs a typical IT room, which is a server room, needs a UPS room, needs AHU rooms, because the building needs to be air conditioned. So AHU shafts, AHU risers are very, very critical for a typical building. This is a simple, typical case which we would like to put across. Coming on next is a very important key factor is the external skin to the building. The exoskeleton which we are talking about, we were working on this building where the building turned to steel after some time, and there were a few elements which were added on later on. So if all those elements, all those structural support systems were incorporated at the design stage given to the structural consultant, there would have been no afterthoughts. Time saved, construction economies would have been very, very smarter there. So these were few factors where we are recommending very strongly that if there is a glazing expected, please let the structural contracting team or the fabrication team who is doing the steel contracting give him the details so that he can give the brackets out. He can give the base foundations to the steel members instead of the steel glazing or the structural glazing contractor coming and putting up his brackets. This can be done at construction stage. Think of it, the steel which with just the unitized or semi-unitized glasses can be come and installed. It can easily save you almost a month's time, because if you're looking at a 20-story building, scaffolding costs and all those things, it doesn't need to be there, it can be done at the time of construction. Fire treatments. This is one of the biggest showstoppers which we have learnt in Mumbai and in the Navi Mumbai parlance. There are a lot of IT buildings in and around here where the CFO and the approving authorities have clearly said if you're going to do a steel building, if it's a 15-story building, I need 4 hours fire rating for this kind of a structure. How do we get 4 hours fire rating for a steel building which is already going to be a cost differential versus a typical conventional RCC building? The solutions were the vermiculite lining or the intermittent paints. Better solutions came in as boarding, the magnesium silicate or the calcium silicate boards. We came up with some more ideas where if it's a built-to-suit building, if I know the locations of each and every light point, duct point or the diffuser point and grills, we can go for a contiguous boarding which doesn't encompass each beam. We just have a single beam. It can be single board which can be a false ceiling as well. And this has been proved lately. In the last few months, we did some studies on that. So we can easily have boards put up as false ceiling also. Of course, acoustics is something which is where we can get hit on. But yes, we can treat this in acoustics also. And if it's a concrete slab, then obviously the beams need to be taken care. But when it comes to 4-hour fire rating, that's a big challenge, and we all need to kind of take this or deal with this very, very specifically. That's very important. Completion of compliance of elevators. Now, elevators are one of the major factors which also allow the client, the end user, to come and get the comfort. Yes, Mr. Developer, yes, Mr. Client, I would like to occupy the building, even if there is a single construction elevator which is available to him to reach to his 18th or 15th floor. Once I have to top of an elevator, the details of the elevator, whether it's the pits, whether the overhead lift machine rooms, or the COP locations, everything needs to be predetermined in a typical steel building, and that's very critical right from the traffic planning point of view, where we all need to know that the densities, the kind of lift management which is going to be proposed is very important for us to envisage. I'm running a bit faster here. Again, HVAC and electrical rooms. Why I'm showing you these specific points is because it's going to end up related to the occupancy of the building. These are heavy load oriented, as well as they need a lot of vertical as well as horizontal movement in terms of cables and shafts and ducts. The load factors are also important, so that the structural consultants can determine these could be the heavy loading areas and others could be a bit more lighter. This is one of the most important slides. Forgive me for the shell and core, but this is where the biggest pain points are to the architects, and this is where a lot of steel is being used, but then to formulate it all together is one of the biggest, I would not say challenge, but then this needs a lot of planning as well. And we have aluminum doors, we have external cladding works, we have board works, we have ceiling works, we have partitions, and we have all the other services above the ceilings. All these needs to be done in 4 months for a 5 lakh square feet building, which means that the whole building needs to run parallelly with all the services, and which means that this can be done only if my building is watertight. Please understand, I have to get the building watertight in max to max 10 months, maximum 12 months, after which the occupancy is available for the user, and where he can start doing his interior fit outs. So the doors, windows, curtains, acoustic treatments, and the partition, etc. are again portions of steel, but need to be appropriately planned so that we can get a homogeneous building at the earliest. The points which I put up earlier are all the NOCs which will be required by the typical developer via his architect, which starts from the structural stability certificate to the fire NOC, this is Chief Fire Officer's NOC, the lift NOC, the M&E NOC, and the plumbing and drainage NOCs. These are showstoppers for any typical successful occupancy of our typical building. Needs to be planned, needs to be pre-planned so well that the effort which we all would have put in to make a shell and core in 6 to 8 months, with this also happening parallelly or pre-planned, we can easily get a successful closure of the meeting. So here's what I had to say about what cohesion which you will require to do amongst all the suppliers, the steel companies, as well as the consultants, as well as the architects, to ensure the best commercial gain and the viability for a typical steel building project, which is all what we are here for. Thank you very much.